Thank you. Okay. I'm calling this meeting to order. The Town of New Shoreham's Coastal Resilience Committee meeting on March 3rd at 3:03 PM. The first item is public input, since we don't have any public other than our Black Island Times representative. We can move to approval of minutes from the February 3rd and February 11th Coastal Resilience Committee meetings. So the 11th one was the one to discuss water issues with the visitors from the Coastal Institute. Okay, so can I get a motion to approve? You said a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? I know there were a couple of changes made before we shared them. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay, so the motion passes and the minutes, both sets of minutes are approved. Moving on to town and council updates. There are no updates from the town council to share. Allison Ring is unable to join today. She said that she did not have any updates. And Nora, unfortunately, due to a last minute schedule conflict, is also not able to join today, but she did share some updates, which I will share with you. One is the guidebook that we have discussed in the previous meetings on, protecting your property from flooding and erosion. She is still accepting suggestions, ideas. She'd sent that out, I think, on February 6th to everyone again. So she's asking for any comments by March 20th. She is going to prepare a full draft of the guide for us to review at the next meeting on April 7th. And then
She wants them by
March 20th. So she did on February 8th.
Nice.
I can, or 6th, February 6th, but I will ask her to maybe send another one. So the idea is to share it with the town by the end of April so we can get the go ahead and then print them. And Laura was just sharing with me that she's in touch with Print Source, the printing vendor for the town. So we're getting estimates of what it will cost to print, but I think it will likely use most of our budget line for the year, depending how many copies we get made. So at least half of it, I would guess. So the other updates from Nora, one is on resiliency walk planning. So she's been discussing with the working group on public engagement, the idea of having a couple times a year hosting a resilience walk for whoever's interested. Okay. Oh, in the summer. Yes, yes. Okay, yes. So the first one sometime in May. So she says if anyone on the CRC has ideas or wants to help, to let her know. On the water level sensors that we're working with Brown University on, she said she's still waiting on the town to decide on a point person for the installation, and hopefully we'll hear on that soon so we can move forward. And then she and Jean-Louis are working on a tutorial video for how to use the resilience map and its different layers that's now on the town website. She's hoping to have that done by the end of March, and we'll share it.
Good. Nice.
All right. Updates from the committee chair and co-chair. One update for me is that at the last meeting, we approved submitting a budget request to the town for a full-time coastal resilience officer starting this next fiscal year. So I did submit that request to the town manager on February 25th, along with a draft job description for the position. And Amy, who is with us online here, replied that there will be more opportunities to discuss the request during the budget hearings this month, which I believe March 25th, looking at the schedule, would be the right one to go to, but I will confirm which one or ones we should participate in. I have not yet provided any inputs. The other thing that I talked to Amy about was the scope of work for the climate resilience consultant, which would be a sort of deliverable-based scope of work. I do have a couple of ideas about that, which I'll share with you. One would be to have a consultant who facilitates a stakeholder engagement workshop and helps develop a long-term resilience plan for Block Island using existing data and projections that we have so that we have a framework with phases, milestones, and kind of a longer term needs in terms of capital investments for the town to use for planning purposes. You know, obviously it would need to be something, a living document that would be updated, but that's one option. A second is out of a conversation with Mary, we could have a consultant work on sort of developing the more of the visuals around the topic to increase awareness. So it could be video and or exhibition that, public exhibition on, resilience challenges related to climate change. And so those were the sort of two ideas I had. And I don't know, I haven't discussed any of this with you, Amy, but I also just want to put those out there and ask for any committee members to share their thoughts with me if there are other ideas of how a consultant could be used.
Just a question for clarification on that. And the first item you mentioned for this person, is that the same thing as an island-wide risk assessment document?
I mean, I guess, yes. It could,
Okay.
I mean, it's a sort of maybe narrower scope, I guess, because it's, I guess, more of a framework plan than a assessment, but assessing first, the data and information we have about the threats and the projections in terms of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then I wanted to thank everyone on the committee for their engagement over the past month. I think it's been like a very busy month. It felt like February was very busy. And of course, we had the history-making blizzard on February 23rd, and many of you went out and documented the impacts on the coast, erosion caused by the storm, and have photos. And this document that we were just handed by Nigel compiles both the photographs and observations, I believe. I'm going to ask Nigel to present this maybe when we get to the Cornick Road Working Group. Does that make sense? But it did raise for me sort of the question about having a repository of sort of being more intentional about documenting the storms that we do have and we wouldn't observe, and having kind of a repository that we can refer to.
On the
And-
website, on the town.
And something
website?
that we can share also with the broader community.
Mm.
Yeah, so you'd said to me that it would be good to have some sort of an archive or depository or whatever, and I think that's a really good idea. What the question really is, what format to have it in and how to do it in an easily accessible way. And what I would like to do is have a sort of a database where we, list storms by date, and then we have with each storm details of, some images, details about tidal levels on those days, wind strengths and directions and so on, just to keep it all together so you can go and get the whole lot.
So I think that we don't have to create a new thing for this.
Okay.
I think we can talk to the people at URI and Sea Grant who are working at Rhode Island Sea Grant who are working on or Coast something. Anyway, it's where you send.
Coast Snap.
No, it's Coast Snap. You
Snap
put the thing right in the cradle and take the picture. This is where you can upload your photos, and they have an archive.
My Coast.
My Coast, thank you.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not going to give us, I think, a lot of the real, I mean, it'll give us some specific photos if someone took them.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But will it give us water levels on those dates?
Yes.
And I mean, I would like to get something much more sort of scientific than just a picture.
Right, and
I don't-
and I think you have to look at My Coast to see if, I mean, I'm just suggesting it as a structure that we might be able, that already exists, that we might be able to tailor to our needs rather, because I don't think it's just photos. I think My Coast has a lot more information on it. And, but I haven't dug into it, so, but that's, just saying.
I mean, they certainly won't have Block Island water levels because until
Until somebody.
extremely, yes, exactly.
Yes, that's correct.
And I think, you know, I would like to see something that is local specific and has, you know, all of the information there rather than having to dig
Right.
into new places. Now, you know, maybe that's an unrealistic.
I'm just suggesting it as a framework, you know, that you could, you know, maybe you can build your space in something that somebody else maintains and updates. And that's all I'm
Yeah.
suggesting.
We could then have a link on the town website that takes you there.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Lisa.
I just want to say, instead of, I think we need to look at the whole picture, not just the storms,
Mhm.
but how it builds back after, because it's very cyclical. And so, you know, yes, you can just keep photographing storm after storm, but somewhere in between, you have to,
Yeah, and
You-
that's what.
you
the-
have to document that
that's the-
it's better.
The beach profiling that you all do with Brian Oakley
Mm.
measures that, I think, over time. So, yeah, this is more of like capturing kind of the snapshot of the immediate aftermath. To storms, you know, as they grow in frequency and intensity, it's more about, that was my idea at least, sort of being better prepared for future storms by knowing what the impacts are, or documenting what the impacts are.
And we can tell more than one story with this. I mean, there's, it's so, you know, once we have a framework set up where you, and people regularly
Yeah.
adding stuff, then you can download stuff from CoSnap and tell a different story or, yeah.
So maybe we can kind of put a pin in this in terms of, like thinking through what format would make the most sense. Maybe at the next meeting, we could,
I also
have a
spoke
proposal.
with the Historical Society about this because I thought this could be like a historical archive. And I don't think that you guys have the data framework in the Historical Society to. Yes, and so then it became, you know, what do we do with all these photos and how do we organize them and and so it was a very interesting meeting, but it wasn't like I was taking it to somebody who had it all figured out, which is what I was looking for, you know?
Though there is an option there, I think they have a new calendar for your community event lecture, I don't know what it's called on Thursday
Yeah.
nights. And I was just this morning thinking of that to reach out to.
Oh.
Just
Oh,
thinking
yeah.
of this, to reach out to Sue and Charlene, the co-presidents. And it makes me think also in terms of who's going to do this and do the data entry. You know, there are interns that come to the Historical Society and are looking for specific tasks, even if they only have 6 weeks.
Right.
They can at least perhaps get it started. Just an idea.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with you. I mean, a few years ago, we talked about this too, because the photos that they had that they were showing for another event a few years ago were fascinating. And there are some gaps in their calendar. So
Okay. No, thank you. So yeah, let's give this one some more thought and explore and maybe bring something, a proposal for us to
I mean,
contemplate at the next meeting.
Lisa's point about rebuilding is a very good one. The problem is that unless you have a fixed photo point for specific areas of the bluffs, or I mean of the dunes, you know, you're just going to get out of context sort of snapshots. So you'd have to have specific photo stations for that, which, you know, is it the Coast Snap or whatever it is? But we're only talking about two places for that, and the same with the profiles. The profiles are really valuable, but there's only, you know, three on Crescent Beach and some on the other side. So it's very much, you know, a local sort of picture, not a global picture.
Somebody just doing an aerial shot with their drone every day for a year, you know, I just. Man, he's really interested in doing that.
Maybe.
Well, there is remember one of the story map websites has a video that
But-
does that, but.
Yeah, Jacques Boudreau
Mhm.
is very interested. He runs a drone and he was very interested in working with us after Mary bent his ear for a whole ferry ride.
You mentioned that before.
But that's a really, I mean, so that, yeah.
So how often do we do this? Yes.
No, well, if you, it would be, we would contract with him to do something. Yeah. You know, we could say, we want, this is what we want. How much would it cost us to do this and give us a proposal? And maybe he's yeah, anyway, because he's an enterprising young man.
So, do you have any co-chair updates to share?
Let's see, we were successful in receiving funding from private source, for the island cohorts funding. This is a University of Rhode Island Sea Grant, effort. There are 4 islands and Block Island is one of them. We've gotten, not a lot of money, like 150,000 or so, anyway, for 4, it's not like we're gonna do a lot with it, but what we're trying to do is create a cohort of island communities so what we're trying to create a cohort of island communities that are working together on issues, on coastal resilience issues.
And where are these islands located?
I'd have to send that to you, Socia, I can't remember, but
I mean, is
most of them are in Narragansett Bay.
What I mean is, you know, like New England.
Oh, no, they're all in Rhode Island. Oh, yeah, no, they're all in Narragansett Bay,
Oh, okay.
except us, I think.
Like
Prudence
Island.
Like Prudence Island.
Long Island.
Yeah, I can't remember what the exact
Okay,
list is
yeah.
because I was in on the negotiations of who was gonna be included and I can't remember the final
So what's the
disposition.
money for?
Well, I sent something around a month or two ago about it and I can send it again. I don't want to do it to a disservice, but I will, go ahead. Oh, come on, you want to come on up and say?
Not really, but before that, I got a press release about this that was in the paper.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And
Yeah.
I think that helped.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful article that she wrote about it.
I didn't print it out.
It's a press release.
Oh, well, whatever
I think
you
for
wrote,
me it was more gray,
whatever it was very well written.
but it has to make the different areas not.
Yeah. That's right. That was a great article. Thank you. Let's see. So as the Deputy Graham Poobah here, I just want to make sure that everybody did their ethics and other training. Do you remember you got an email about ethics training? And everybody's supposed to do it. And I thought I had done it, but there's like a step at the end where you say you did it and I hadn't taken that last step. So just in case, but I got an email back saying, you know, I did it.
How ethical of you.
That, yeah, something like
Are you
that.
keeping track of this, Laurel? How are we
Very
doing?
unethical. I did not do that.
Okay.
Laurel's sending emails to people.
Oh, so Laurel's gonna send
mean, I
out
had
an
to do it.
email.
This is distinct from there's one that's supposed to be here, right?
That's an
In,
open meeting.
yeah, but that's
That's different.
Yeah.
completely different.
This is online training and it takes about 15, 20 minutes, something like that.
And it's accessible through the town website.
It was
The state-
Laurel's
the
gonna
state
send out
website.
the information again. She took an action item from this. I could hear her down there.
I always forget.
Exactly. Okay, next, Senator Whitehouse is hosting what he's calling an EEO Day. It is,
Energy, environment.
energy, environment and oceans. Thank you.
I wrote it
Oh my
down.
God. And both Nora and I are already committed to attend. But
Is this
also
a Zoom?
welcome. It's an in-person meeting. I don't know if it has a Zoom associated with it, but it's April 8th in Warwick at the Crown Plaza Hotel. So they certainly have the Zoom capability. I just haven't seen that part of the announcement. But I did want to let you know that everyone is welcome. And I mean, I don't even have an agenda for the day. I don't even know if I have to spend the night or not yet. So, if they start at 11, I'm great. But
Yeah.
no, actually, they start earlier than that because I know I'm going to miss the first session if I don't spend the night.
We'll
And I'm
share
on-
when you receive the program, because that
Yeah.
one notice just said that details are forthcoming.
I'll
So
send the program
once
out
you
to
get
you
the
all.
details, we'll. Yes, because our meeting's on the 7th.
April.
The day
8th.
after
It's
the-
next day, yeah.
After our meeting in April.
Yes. So, yeah, so that's one. Okay, check. I sent out, a little notice about URI, Roger Williams University and the Rhode Island Sea Grant Legal Fellows Research Opportunity. They do research and policy. And we used them in 2024, Sam Filiaggi, which I'm sure that's not how he pronounces his name, but came out and did some work for us. And, but I'm saying it now because this is something that comes up every year or so. And so if we have legal or policy stuff that we want to have addressed, we should be like putting it aside or having somebody kind of save it and so that, and save it up for the next opportunity that comes down the pike. And you don't have to just save it we can be talking actively with the people who run the program so that they know that we're interested.
yeah.
It's not like you have to sit on it, but nothing will happen until they come out with the opportunity. But I wanted, I will send you her name. I don't want to say it wrong. Okay, send.
Can you send it to all of us? Because,
Yeah, I'll send the whole thing again.
thanks.
Yeah, I sent it earlier. Okay. I'm gonna do that last. The Parish House in on Spring Street is engaging engineers to look at a remediation project.
Okay.
They tried this, coir logs, whatever, next door, and it was a failed experiment. But I did want to let you guys know that was happening and that we should kind of keep an eye on that.
So this is pre-applying to CRMC.
I believe they're just don't have a design yet. So that, yeah, they don't have, is that?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I did share the legal fellow that did the paper on the coastal resilience projects was looking at things like core logs. And I sent that to Joe Loya, who's on the committee at the parish that's looking at this. So he said he would share it. I thought it was
Outstanding.
useful.
Let's see. The one that I really wanted to say something about was, before that, I'm going to attend the Rebuild by Design Funding Strategies to Advance Resilience meeting tomorrow. It's a Zoom at 1 p.m. And if anyone else is interested, I can resend that, but it was sent out. I mean,
That was in the email I sent with the
Yep.
3 different things.
Yeah,
One of
and
them.
which was such a great summary. Thank you. I signed up for everything. So whatever you did, it worked.
Signed up.
The last thing I wanted to talk about with you guys is we have the Living Shorelines opportunity that we discussed at the last meeting was to be due today, but they extended the deadline to the 13th. And so Ann and I and a couple of us, we've talked about it. Well, what are some of the things that we could put the town in for? This is a chance for identifying somebody to do for us a living shoreline design, kind of like what we're paying GZA to do for the beach side, for the Crescent Beach stuff. It's that kind of effort. However, the twist is they want us to be training people in the town who can then take this forward and become sort of the town expert on how you do this. How do you do living shorelines? How do you work? So we've bounced around a couple of ideas like, and I just want you to think about this. I mean, we don't, although we do have 10 days to do it, so maybe we really need to be talking to Amy about this very specifically.
Yeah.
But some ideas we had were, you mentioned the Sampy Meadow property, and we could put in a request so that whatever we develop on the Sampy Meadow property has living shoreline, that approach taken into account if there's a dock, that you do it in a way that's respectful of living shoreline approaches. The other ideas we've had are doing something more with the Cornneck Road, like do we do the marsh side and do we like a thin layer deposition or something like that? That's totally a living shoreline approach that we're trying to do on that side. So, but there, we could maybe think about the beach house. The West Beach Road is a nasty
Disaster.
yes. Do we want to address West Beach Road? And I really think it's up to, we're advisory, but in terms of picking which spot, I think we really need to talk to Amy and, Mike Shea and whoever else she wants us to talk to. The final thing was, and I don't remember, I think maybe this was Ann's idea, but using low impact development principles and integrating low impact development principles into town plans.
And maybe could I segue into the capital improvement plan?
That's perfect.
Amy is on this call for that that agenda item, which I think is going to take most of the rest of our time. It might. So
Except for Nigel, we have to leave time for Nigel.
yes, and we're going to have working group updates at the end, so we can come back to the living shoreline under the grant part. So this is the first time we're doing this as a committee. And we are here, and I want to hear from you, Amy, sort of about your expectations from us in this part of the meeting in terms of giving feedback on the capital improvement plan that's proposed for next year. Hopefully this would be something we can do in future years as well. What I see our role as being is to sort of apply the coastal resilience lens to the projects that are relevant to that, and suggest, guidance, give some guidance or things for the town to consider as they move forward with these projects. So maybe Amy, do you want to start by sharing what you're hoping to get from us?
Yeah, and it's very similar. Year one, sometimes the goal is just to show up and be in the room together and say, it's important for this group to weigh in on this process. And so I'm happy to, one, take specific questions or feedback on detail areas if we want to get into certain projects. But I think the more important part that may not even be a discussion, but something now that we work on over the next 12 months in preparation for how we do this going forward, is figuring out how to apply that lens. What kind of frameworks could we formalize that would provide meaningful input from CRC into the capital planning process? What does that actually look like besides talking about individual projects? I don't have a good idea about what other communities have started to build for frameworks. A lot of the ones that I've seen so far are, tend to categorize priority level, timelines, geography, and then sort of focus area or what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's dune rehabilitation or, water management, but without any without anything beyond that, just categorizing. So I think I'm very open to what we talk about today, but my hope is that we start to build a process that then we can integrate and formalize into the town's standards over the next couple of years. So that's my goal.
Great. So I just realized we don't have the capital improvement plan printed out, but I hope that people had a chance to look at it. And maybe what we could do is to start with sort of a general discussion along the lines that you just mentioned, Amy, in terms of our thoughts about how sort of framework or process approach for looking at these projects going forward and prioritizing things that are relevant to coastal resilience, and then maybe if there's feedback on anything specific that's in the current plan.
Mhm.
Is that a good approach? Start with the general?
Great. Let's start with.
Okay. And I guess we can just sort of open it up for folks to share. Mary?
Some way at the end here. George, it could have been you. Amy, thank you so much for meeting with us. Sorry to give you my bat.
No, that's fine. Yes, that's the.
It's okay. Thank you.
Because she's there.
She
She
sees
sees the back of her. Yeah.
I started thinking about this, and it's so nice to hear you, Amy. Thank you so much for being here to articulate some kind of direction for us, and this idea that the discussion will go over a year. I started looking at the sort of why or how. What do we look at that already exists, and reviewed that hazard mitigation plan from 2025, and looked at the town council resolution in the appendix, and looked at the mitigation goals and the action plans to reduce risk. And so in there, it seemed really clear to me, the goals seemed really clear in terms of what the town included in that hazard mitigation plan based on public input and then input from the people that were on the panel, but also a public opinion survey, which I think was pretty clear in asking what levels of concerns do people have specific to natural hazards. Does it make sense to pull from that as we build this framework? Because they're also, there's such good planning in that document on.
I think that's a great, that is a great area for this group to double check or gut check the work that we've put forward. Because I can tell you nobody went back to the hazard mitigation plan. They might have had things in their head that came out of that, but I think that should be one of the pieces of the framework. Just like planning refers back to the comp plan to look at capital improvements. Hazard mitigation, I think, is a foundation for this group to go back to and say either what things have we missed or have we aligned our priorities consistently.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. One of the things that popped out to me was when I was reading it too, I was like, oh, found another error, found another error. It's kind of keeping me awake. But one of the things that pops out now when you say that were the key documents that were noted in the plan, the hazard mitigation plan, the comp plan, the MRP community resilience building plan workshop, because they were all dated. The harbor management plan, the transportation study, that was the Core Neck Road transportation in 2017. The hazard adaptation study, I think that was in 2013 as well. The TNC coastal resistance, I'm just reading off their list. The coordinator's summary that was Glennie. So that was her summary. So there's a lot of good, and then of course the document itself and the public opinion survey. There's a lot of good information in there, including another acronym. You're going to love this one. STAPLE? Is that right, Amy? Where you consider social, technical, administrative, political, legal, economic, and environmental, cost benefits to all of this stuff.
I can't say that's a tool that I use every day,
Wow.
but somebody does.
That was a lot. A lot of factors there. So go back and check that, you're saying. that document.
I don't know about all of them, but certainly to me, the hazard mitigation plan is on the top of that list as a document. It does refer to all those other subsidiary reports.
Mhm.
But I think that the overall plan is a key document that we collectively should be bouncing this capital improvement plan against.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. One more quick question. Do we have someone writing the comprehensive plan? Did that go
It's-
out to bid?
Is that-
It went out to bid. We extended the response date to the 11th.
Okay.
And I believe we have at least 3 firms.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
Maybe just piggybacking on that, because I think it's in line with Mary's feedback was, I don't know if you heard me mention, Amy, this idea of sort of developing a plan for the town that's a resilience framework, sort of looking much longer term at kind of a phased approach, like what do we need to be most worried about in the next few years, and what are our priorities, and what would it be in the following 10 years, that kind of framework. With that, I mean, my reservation about pursuing something like that is that we do have these other plans, but they're not exactly the same thing. But we also don't have anyone to implement a plan that we yet. I'm hoping that we will, but I don't think it makes sense to have a resilience plan and framework unless we have a resilience officer who can oversee its implementation. But would it in general be useful from your perspective, or, continue to focus on like the new comprehensive plan, the hazard mitigation plan,
I
our sort of guiding documents?
I do think we're sort of getting there. I think we're just about ready to have a guiding document, a strategic vision for all the work you all have been doing, but maybe isn't codified in a way that lay people or other departments of the town can use on a day-to-day basis. I think we're getting close to that tool, and it is different. Maybe we have an opportunity to beef that up in the comp plan, which has a resiliency section to it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to get as far as we all want it to and need it to. Particularly as we start to do more and more of these large capital projects, it could benefit from some consolidated strategic vision. Again, that's not meant that you aren't doing that, but for the rest of us to benefit from.
My comment dovetails with what Mary introduced. I have 2 comments, but I'd like to mention the one that dovetails, please. I was thinking to get to that point of such a plan, of having the town ask all its departments that are pertinent to sea level rise, of course, to identify what I call a tipping point. Instead of having a 5 or 10 or 20, 30-year plan that is chronological, have it be determined by what I call tipping points. And a tipping point would indicate the need for mitigation for sea level rise, storm surge, or flooding. It would also indicate what the mitigation would look like. For example, Ocean Avenue North. At what point, what is the tipping point for Ocean Avenue North to determine that it should be abandoned, for example? Or what is the tipping point for the safety complex once Ocean Avenue and Beach starts to flood? In other words, are you going to say things like, well, if area X has X number of flooding due to a regular high tide per year, it is eligible for mitigation of sorts. The same goes for BIPCO. They know that down the line, they're going to be dealing with flooding there, increasingly so. If we had a tipping point scale, I don't know what to call it.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
You like that?
Yeah, it works. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Harvest Department, and of course the Highway Department, so that we're not stuck or bound by a time when to implement some, some form of mitigation. We are guided by the circumstances that exist at the time.
I think it also helps people in the public to understand that it's a sort of moving target. You could combine your idea with Anne's idea and sort of formulate these
Yeah.
steps. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, like Nantucket's done. And phase 1 dovetails with phase 2, and then phase 2 with phase 3. And some of them, they've said, according to Leah, they've overlapped, not just dovetailed, but it, that, you know, to Amy's point, it could give us a framework to build different phases out.
Yeah.
So that the public and the taxpayers, or, you know, we're talking about finance here, could understand the reasoning behind it. And also in that understanding, I think it would help them, you know, just integrate what they see every day in their daily lives, like Nigel and Lisa's photographs that are outstanding, in these things that they see that are a tipping point or an emergency.
Yeah.
I think both of those ideas mixed together could help.
Yeah.
And it would
Write that.
facilitate, in my opinion, the capital improvement planning content.
That there's certain indicators we're looking
Yeah.
at, like you said, number of like,
Yeah.
you know, non-high tide flooding.
So
or
that was my
high tide
comment
flooding.
about that subject. I have a different comment, but that can wait.
Any other comments on that topic of kind of planning framework guide? You want to bring
Okay.
your next point?
The other one, Amy, is the cost of the revetment repair that, you know, I asked a dumb question last time, which was what would happen if we abandoned it? And so now that I know what would happen if we abandoned it, I would like to have us explore the advantages of excavating the old landfill versus the cost of repeated revetment repair. How do you feel about that?
I can't put a number on it, but I can tell you that exercise was done. You know, whether in one fell swoop you try to excavate the whole thing, and that was cost prohibitive. I can't tell you what it was, but I think off the top of my head of that revetment landfill closing number, about 975 was landfill closure, so excavation of material, one-time costs, not meaning that they won't recur, but removing material that will then be trucked off island. And so we weren't going to be able to take very much out, just what was absolutely required, but that exercise is very expensive.
Now, you mentioned that we have to finance the repeated repair. Could you refresh my memory, please? How often do you anticipate that needing to be done, and how much is it?
So we don't know exactly, but when we first did the work, the estimate was 10 to 15 years, and that's about exactly where we are. Whether that will accelerate, we don't know.
Okay.
And so one of the things that the town, in conversations with state resiliency programming, is having is, okay, we're going to do this work right now, sort of an update of our revetment. We know it has an expiration date. It cannot hold things back forever. What else can we do now to start preparing for or delaying the next rehab that we have to do? And because it's future planning and technical assistance and resilience all mixed in, right now, state resilience officers are very supportive of contributing to that conversation. So that's the kind of work that I think is a great example of how do we take what needs to be done we have a project, we have a bid, we have permits, we have a requirement. But what do we do alongside on a parallel path to not be in the exact same place in the exact same time frame?
That's a really good strategy. If you did not use an alternative strategy of any kind, what would it cost to repair the revetment now?
So we're, I think 3.9, is
I
that?
thought that's what you said. Okay,
think
so
that's what I
close
said.
to 4 million. Because like,
3.2, sorry.
no, yeah, if you look at that has to happen every 10 years or less, not more. Not knowing what the storm surges are going to do. It's going to add up, it's going to accumulate, and I wonder how that would compare to the cost of excavating the old
Oh,
landfill.
I think the excavation costs are tens and tens of millions of dollars because you also have to pay the disposal fee on the mainland. And you would have to negotiate that with Johnston landfill, 'cause we don't want to fill it up with, anyway, but this is, it would be a significant impact. Yeah, I think that while uh, while maintaining the revetment in many ways is just throwing good money after bad, it does delay the expenditure of tens of millions of dollars, but it's just a delay. That thing is going to be complete. It'll become like a trash island eventually. And where we can put all our dogs. Isn't that the island of dogs? But anyway, I think that, we have to do something. We don't have the capital to excavate, even though that would probably be the best solution for us.
I don't know that we would be allowed to excavate,
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly. Exactly. I think, yeah, the permitting and everything else. So I think this is even a good solution right now. I mean, what else can we do?
Okay.
Right.
Well, yeah.
I mean, the trouble obviously is we're always putting off for the future, what should have been done way back when. And the cost of doing it in the future is not going to go down, it's going to go up. And so you're ending up with this sort of ever-ending, exponential growth problem of cost until eventually, we're a Superfund site or something, But yeah, what do you do?
Well,
I know, I remember Kim voted, Kim was one of the lone folks who stood up in the town meeting and said, I vote against but what would you do now?
You want to come up?
I hate to put you on the spot, Kim, but you're a wise woman, and yeah, no,
So Kim said, you have to remove it all. You either spend the money now or you spend the money later. And that is exactly what we're talking about. I think that, and Kim, I wanted to repeat what you said because that's exactly the point.
Yeah.
That all of us who voted against it were trying to make, is that we're going to spend this money.
Eventually.
Yeah, eventually. And by the way, it's probably, and it can be argued. I mean, Nigel and I could probably have a very lively argument about whether it's better to just leave it and let it erode or take it out and then deal with this huge pit. Yeah, what do you repopulate that with? How do you, and that's a whole living shoreline issue. And how do you revegetate that and protect what's left of the transfer station, and I mean, it's a really big project.
I mean, in a way, it's a problem where the solution is someone suddenly comes up with some money to do something. I mean, there's a grant available, and this seems to happen all the time in this country, that suddenly big pots of money are available for certain things. If you have a project, go for it. And, maybe that's our only way of dealing with it, is we hope that someone, if we have a plan, that at least we hope someone will come up with some money to fund these disasters.
But we don't even know if the plan would be approved.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Ah.
It's a big can
I
of
think-
worms, it sounds like to me, but maybe just to add on, since we're talking about the revetment and kind of associated issues, we've different parts of this committee have talked in the past about the impacts on the pond just to the north, which is Wash Pond.
Yeah,
Where there's regular overwash, I think that's one of the beach profiling sites that
Yes.
is measured, so there's documentation of what's happened there. I assume the erosion there is accelerated due to the revetment.
I would say it's actually probably worse due to the breakwater for the channel.
Oh, okay,
It's the loss of the sedimentation,
yeah.
the sand coming out. Charlestown Beach has all of the sand that should be heading up north. Bottom line.
So I think
But
maybe,
she's making the point, that with the revetment there, you're not having the sort of natural, even
Yeah.
retreat of the shoreline, even, even retreat of the shoreline. Instead, you've got this hard structure which focuses energy on either end of the structure, and so does the revetment make Wash Pond more vulnerable? We don't know, but it's kind of something we're keeping track of.
I mean, Brian certainly has pre and post revetment data on the Wash Pond profile,
might be useful
but
to-
it's also very storm related
It's very
too.
stormy.
So
It-
it's hard to know.
It's repeatedly said because of the breakwater, it is the highest erosion rate that he's measured on the island is
Absolutely.
right about at that point.
So-
When we ask him, what should we do? He says, move it.
Move it, yeah.
so Amy, I think.
Yeah, he said that from way back. You should never have done
For
this.
me, I think maybe it's just kind of steady, like in looking more closely at the impacts there and what can be done, because also looks to me with the naked eye that there's contamination there. And I mean, it might be, I think probably just let nature take its course and it becomes brackish. I mean, it's already probably brackish or a lagoon, but there might be some cleanup that needs to happen there down the road. But I just wanted to flag that I think that maybe is something that might be something we look for grant funding for in the future.
And that was included in sort of it's not a written scope yet, but where we've identified where we'd like the state to help us in this project for future planning.
Okay.
Doesn't just
Yeah.
deal with revetment, but goes as far north as Wash Pond.
Okay, great. And
I
then
mean-
the other thing is the southern road, which Judy just mentioned, that
Beach Road.
pretty major erosion happening there and the dirt part of it at the end. There's a runoff from the paved area and I think also probably erosion from the revetment. And it's also, exposing a lot of matter underneath it's
Yeah.
from the landfill, and whether there could be sort of a bioswales, putting in some pavers, doing something to mitigate the erosion and clean up that area. I don't know if that's part of the plan.
So that's a different project. We are just in the process. I don't know if Mike Shea's in the room or not. If he is, he should talk
No.
instead of me.
not.
But we're just in the process of being awarded a grant for green infrastructure retrofits to deal with that area. I don't have all of the grant agreement yet, but it would be basically from where the transfer station western exit is out to the beach, mostly managing stormwater, but a little bit of restoration as well in order to make that end section a little bit more stable. I think a grass channel, bioretention basin, a water bar, and a couple other management tools to try to stabilize.
Great.
So that is underway.
Yeah, that's a good move.
Is that a state grant or?
Yeah, the MRP from Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank.
Wow. Is there any we sort of moved into the specific issues, but maybe opening it up to anything further on the revetment or any other item on the capital improvement plan for this year. I'm gonna share a few other sort of general ideas. One is a recommendation that the town sort of commit to applying the low impact development principles to its projects. So that includes, and maybe this is already being done, I'm not sure, but limiting the impervious surfaces, adopting, the flexible cluster designs. So you're working with the natural environment rather than against it, and protecting the natural drainage and the vegetative buffers. These types of elements being integrated, something, I don't know if it's, the other thing is kind of looking at the vulnerabilities of whatever the property or area is in terms of, vulnerabilities to flooding, erosion, saltwater intrusion, septic, stormwater issues. Kind of a, when I saw the Coast Guard station, in the list, I know that's probably mostly interior kind of things, but that area is vulnerable to a lot of these things. So, is that being integrated into the long-term planning for that property? Mitigating the possible issues with flooding, erosion, saltwater intrusion, all those things. So whether it would be useful to sort of have a checklist, again, maybe there is, using things like storm tools to look at the projections for sea level rise and with the storm surge, what that looks like in the different properties like Sanpete Meadow as you move towards developing that, making sure those things are taken into account.
So we don't use those tools specifically on our projects now. And so that's exactly the kind of very tailored recommendation that the committee can bring forward to the council for adoption in a more formal way. And
Okay.
whether that's codified in an ordinance or through policy, but I think that's exactly the kind of process that you can move from just encouraging, which is important because in practice that's how it happens, but putting that backstop into the town's more formal procedures makes sure that they live on and that we're all meeting the standards. Because currently we don't do that.
Okay,
There
great.
are no formal low impact development principles that are applied.
If I could just dovetail again, I reviewed the low impact development municipal self-assessment packet, and that informed us in terms of erosion strategies in our citizens guide. And I spoke with Jen about it as well. It's a very involved process, that self-assessment. It involves all the town departments having to work together. It's very time consuming, but from my perspective, a shortcut would be to use the questions that they ask as your guide for what they require.
Mhm.
And that's my comment.
Thank you. George, did you have something? No. Anyone else? I guess one other question, Amy, on sort of the grants, as we move forward with implementing, grant funded designs, like we do have funding for the Scotch Beach parking area and the dune paths. So no additional, I don't think, like town resources are required for implementing those, but
Just time, like Mike Shea or someone from whoever the
Yep.
town assigns to overlook the project as it's happening.
But I guess my sort of broader question is, how do we integrate these grant funded projects into the bigger town plan? Like, should they be part of the capital improvement plan, even if the funding is coming from a grant source rather than the town?
When we know them, we try to include them. And so on the last page, there's a section that tries to capture some of what we've been doing. There's you've got the 465, which is the sort of what I call phase one that we're still wrapping up. And then the 439-2, which was awarded just recently. So we're trying to capture those when we know them. If they're prospective, we tend not to
Oh, I see, yes.
include them with a number. But we may, and you'll see this on some other line items, if it's something that's risen to a high priority and we're, say, waiting for funding, holding that as a space. I think on Gracie's Cove, the shoreline access line item is there. We don't have any funding, but we don't want to stop talking about it as a need. And we're also not ready to commit taxpayer funds. So we keep it on the page. It's in the capital plan as much as a reminder of its importance. As anything. So there's a little room for a hybrid response to that. If it's not something that has actually been funded yet, we can still sort of put a placeholder in for some of those things. I don't know if I answered your
So,
question. That was a
yeah.
lot of words.
Yes, no, you did. I guess so. One follow-up would be with the beach pavilion potential project that, we're just at the conceptual design phase, but at what point would something like that be put into the?
And so we don't have all the right labels here, and I can make this better when we bring it to financial town meeting. But that phase two, 439,200 includes, I believe, 100% design on the beach house.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
But for the actual, so we wait until we're further along with the design, and if, there is a decision to move forward with reciting the beach pavilion or rebuilding, then when does
We'd have to get further through the
Yeah,
actual
the design process?
design to know what kind of costs are then associated with that and how
Okay.
that slots into a plan.
Okay. Understood.
But then let me ask an obvious question. I am assuming that you will wait to hear from the community at large as to the extent to which they support such project before you plan on it.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one because for something like the beach house, we almost always want to be ready with a plan because it is so vulnerable.
Yeah. Okay.
That kind of thing can go at any moment.
Yeah.
We want to be ready so that we can execute if we're in a disaster recovery mode.
Exactly. Yeah. So one last thing I wanted to mention, and I'm not really sure where this goes because it's not on the in the capital improvement plan, but it's been mentioned that the town will be using the sand that was dredged from Old Harbor, the privately funded dredging. And I wanted to ask the town to consider, the things like the winds and the currents and the sand budget considerations when deciding where to put the sand. So not piling it on top of the dune grass on the little dunes across from the beachhead, or maybe deciding that is the best approach, but or depositing it in some part of the beach where it's not just going to get swept away in the next storm, or at a time of year where it's likely to get swept away in a storm. But is there a way that this committee, and we have the contacts with the URI researchers who are looking at the beach profiling, the sand budget issues, the energy, offshore energy, all that stuff, that could factor into kind of making informed decisions about where to put the sand. Is that?
There's a lot there. So let me, easiest to hardest probably on the response list. The sand that is currently out of Old Harbor, the town is not taking. It didn't meet our quality standards to put on town beaches. So just know that
Okay.
that scenario, we're back in the hypothetical.
Okay.
That material has not been accepted for the town beaches.
Okay.
Timing, we cannot change the timing. We have very narrow dredge windows. So whenever the sand comes out, it's generally within 72 hours that it needs to be placed. So it dewaters, and under the CRMC dredge permits, that needs to be relocated pretty quickly.
Okay.
Which means, getting back to the theoretical aspects and the studies, that's the kind of work that's helpful now,
Yeah.
so that when we are ready to execute, we've already digested recommendations for placement. And keep in mind that work for placement is generally going to be done with local assets. So it has to be in places that we can reach. Dump trucks, loaders, things that we have here on island. And so balancing that practical approach with where it might be most ideal to place, those are great conversations to have now so that we're ready.
And just so you know, Amy, what we're thinking is that if we can place it in a way that it becomes sort of a natural sand engine, it redistributes its way up the Scotch
Yep.
Beach, you know, and up, and so that we're actually just using a mechanical mechanism for getting it from sort of the Ballard side to the beach side. Because
I do think GZA is supposed to work on this in phase 2. In that a little
Yeah,
bit of
they're
their
looking at
scope
that
is that
area. Yep.
that
Yeah.
Corn Neck revetment
Mhm.
where the monument is. So I'm
Yes.
hoping also, and you guys can help steer this conversation, they're providing some guidance about how to execute that more
We also
effectively.
have at URI, Annette Grilly's research group that's doing the modeling in concert with GZA on the energetics of the beach, which will inform that also. And I did send Annette all of the information that we gathered on Saturday about what happened on the beach after this recent storm, the
I know
blizzard.
you want to move on to Nigel and committee reports, so I'll just say one more thing about dredging. Keep in mind that we may be looking at a different solution next time around. The harbor master is certainly exploring more of a vacuum system that transfers sand from Old Harbor directly to the East Beach. We don't know exactly what kind of distance we'll be able to get, but the technology may in fact be different. And so what kind of different placement options exist then if we're able to do that?
And when is the next dredging happening? Is it
It
happening?
would be next winter before January 31st.
Okay, not this year. Okay.
So.
Okay.
The idea of essentially pumping it over the seawall, I mean the harbor wall, presumably that's taking into account the presence of the sort of eel grasses.
Yeah.
And okay, I mean obviously, yeah, in many ways that is the ideal solution because it's moving the sand as it would move if there was no harbor protection at all, which is exactly what we would like. So yes, but we do need to protect the eelgrass stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you, Amy. I think this has been very helpful, and I think there are a couple of action points for us out of this, including kind of coming up with some, what we would want to propose to the town council, the town sort of consider as it implements these plans in terms of low impact development, looking at the projections, et cetera. And the sort of dredging recommendations or dredging sand placement recommendation.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, when Keith Stover first came into power, he asked us, what we would like to see changed. And I said, I would love to see much more coordination amongst the different departments of the town. And this is an example of exactly that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate all the input. It's been helpful.
All right. So we will move on then to some working group updates. I feel like we have covered a lot of this, or some of it at least, but I did want the working groups to share any priorities that you have come up with since our last meeting. And so maybe starting with the public education and
Okay.
community engagement.
All right. So I'm tabling my other report because I think we're slowing down. All right, so the Public Education and Community Engagement Group, which I think should be called the Community Education and Engagement Group.
That sounds good. CE.
You know what I mean? Anyway, we reviewed the general goals for 2026 and quickly moved the discussion to how we can best support BIRA with its April 25th program, during which Leah Hill, the Resilience Officer of Nantucket, will present her island's resilience plan for sea level rise. Our committee has come up with ways to support BIRA in their advertising efforts, which Sarah will discuss with Joe Loya in order to determine what BIRA's wishes are. Because we're helping, we're
Yeah.
not running this, we're not
Yeah.
in charge of this.
Right.
We are assisting,
Yes.
kind of.
But it's their
No,
event.
it's their,
not a
it's
community
their baby,
resilience
it's
committee
their
effort. Yeah.
baby, and Anne very tactfully reminded me of that. This would be a good time for me to ask all the CRC members, us at this table, to send any questions that you may think you want to have asked of Leah, and direct those questions to Jean-Louis. He will compile them for BIRA as well as for us. Oh, yeah. We want to start advertising the end of March, so do it like next week.
And maybe just to chime in here that there's going to be an opportunity for people in this committee to meet with Leah separate from the public event. I don't think we want her to be talking about real in the weeds kind of stuff in the public event, but for even in advance, we can ask her questions and get answers. So some of the ones you sent me today, for example, are
Yeah.
ones that I would save for the sort of small
Right.
group
I should
conversations. Yeah.
remind Jean-Louis of that, so that when he sorts through them to separate those.
Yeah.
I CC'd you my questions that I sent to Jean-Louis.
Yes.
And I only did that because to avoid repetition. You know, or maybe to get your brain started.
That's what it did for me.
Yeah, okay. This committee agreed that this year's priority will be to focus on community education and engagement regarding the role the pavilion plays in the destruction of the dunes, which creates flooding and erosion on Corneck Road. We hope to work very closely with GCA's timetable, hence no specific summer outreach event is planned. Instead, there may be a series of smaller events during which the public can participate and contribute ideas. We stressed the importance of inviting representatives not only from the usual town departments, but also those from Tourism Council, Chamber of Commerce, and Historic Preservation Commission. I think that's the right title. In the meantime, Jean-Louis will be looking at the town website, or Jean-Louis and I will be looking at the town website to see if an index of sorts will make the site more user-friendly. Anne, Nora, and I prepared a prototype based on suggestions we had for Nora's website.
For TNC.
Yeah. And Anne commented an abbreviated version might be very suitable for our town website, so for people, yeah.
Here it is.
The plan was Nora was going to take part of that TNC, and once that's done, because I think that's being worked on now by someone within or someone they've hired at TNC to sort of update theirs. She's going to take sort of a portion of that and
That's
figure out how
right.
we're going to put it into the
That's right.
town website.
My motive, my
Thanks, Judy.
inspiration came from the phone book. As you know, I'm technologically disinclined. And I was thinking of the layperson like myself, who would look at a website and go, where the heck do I go? So I have grouped it by general topics and then specific subtopics. So, and then you can just click on that subtopic and oops, it's there. You know what I mean? It's the index built in the link. You don't have to do the linking. So anyway. No, I just have the ordinance, working group. So Anne and I belong to.
Oh, wait, yeah, let's go in the
Oh.
order that we.
I wanted to add one thing. Thanks, Sofia, for that summary. I just want to add the one thing that's really important that we talk about a lot in that group. And that is that we really don't want to appear like we're top down telling the community when and what they can say. It is really something that we're working on in that outreach committee, within this committee, to have more opportunities. And some of the things that came up from that discussion were to Nora to do sort of a walking tour that came from a discussion that we had when Judy, when we met at your mom's house with the water company and the scientists and professors from URI to have more, to create more opportunities this summer where people can just sort of fall into a walk with Nora, or we started talking about using and we need to talk to you about this, using Nora's reaching out to the rec department to see how we can use the building. It's been talked a lot about in this group, the pavilion building, to utilize that space over the summertime as sort of this information hub. And it reminded me of what Nigel was talking about this morning at the beginning of the meeting. Where can we have a place to put information that people can access? So, you know, one of our first 6 months in talking about this, we were saying, you know, some of these stations, if you will, already exist, like Kim doing the hydrology walk. And these are things people are familiar with. So I just want to reassure all of you, we're looking at ways that over the next month or so, how we can have more opportunities for the public to just find information, to go on, you know, a walk, to go use the pavilion as sort of an information hub. And so just to share that.
Yeah, and I so respect Mary's philosophy, and we have to be transparent and not functioning from top down. We are all equal in this process. We're all learning together. And it's a different mindset than from we're in charge. Okay.
So, sorry, I'm gonna move to the grants working group, if that's okay, because it comes before ordinances. We only have 10 minutes left. So I wanna make that- so grants, we quickly talked about some priorities.
So I purposefully put that into the co-chair or vice chair report so that Amy would hear it. So I don't have anything more to add.
Okay.
But I really wanted her to hear what all
Yeah.
the things that we're balancing, because I really think that we need to have somebody identified that does that professionally and
Yeah.
paid for it.
We do have, the Living Shoreline Opportunity, which we'll be meeting tomorrow with Nora to figure that out. And we do need to talk to Amy to decide on a site to propose. And, you know, this idea of potentially doing some kind of stakeholder engagement and planning framework, you know, that's something we might eventually want to seek funding for. But otherwise, the ongoing Warnick Road grant work, I think and figuring out what other, as opportunities arise, but we are attending this webinar on March 25th, which is going to share all the Rhode Island resilience related funding opportunities for the year. So that will give us some ideas, hopefully. So town ordinance and planning.
Okay, so you already mentioned some of that stuff, so I won't repeat that. Nantucket has ordinances that provide relief for height and setback restrictions in the flood zones.
For existing structures.
Oh, thank you. For existing structures. That's a key word here. We are interested in pursuing similar ordinances, we meaning the committee, and at this point, we're thinking that if they are accepted, that we attach a special use permit to them only to be cautionary in terms of unintended consequences. My next step will be to ask Leah Hill for the exact wording of their ordinances so that we can look at a model and see what that looks like. The reasoning behind this is new construction already allows for freeboarding. Yes, we were a little sneaky about it because we also lowered the height of the building to be the same as if it were not freeboarding. So you're essentially ending up with a smaller home. But I'm also concerned about pre-existing homes that are dealing with flooding. Bimi's structure is an excellent example. The Paris Center. If we had an
Step back,
ordinance
yeah.
where people could move or elevate relief.
Setback relief, yeah.
Yes, that would help the pre-existing structures, but I fully appreciate that could be a very sticky subject because those moves affect the neighbors very much so. It might affect their view shed. And that's why I want to suggest that we start out, if the town council does support this, that we start out with a special use permit. Amen.
Okay, the other things, for the town ordinance and planning working group, we talked about as priorities, we're getting the guide that Nora's been working on, complete, approved and disseminated, contributing to the comprehensive plan development, especially the natural hazards and climate change section, which has goals, policies and actions. And, also doing the annual update of the municipal resilience plan or program, which, we hadn't done, but was done kind of in a rushed fashion that Nora reported on last week. That's the state. That's the plan that feeds into the state process. And then, yeah, so that's it. So Corn Neck Road, I think there are two things here, right? There's the Nigel's thing, and then there were the
You want to do GZA first?
Sure. So we had a wonderful meeting with GZA last week. Very informative. They've been working with BIA, which is a design firm, architectural design firm, and they have come up with 3 very unique designs that are the way they're putting this together is that each of the designs has features that can plug and play with the other. So you don't have to pick like A or B or C. You can say, I like this about A and I like this about, and people can help design what they want to see. Anyway, it's really it's a great approach. And they also have developed a Town Beach questionnaire, which I think I can send that to you now. Have you guys gotten it? No. Okay, I'll send that
when are
out.
they sending it out and to whom?
Yeah, so to CRC, I think they're going to make it part of the presentation. Right now, they are scheduled to do a public engagement session next Monday.
That's scheduled?
I don't know. They're still talking about it and we're trying to delay them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to delay them for our sake, but they have to get the project done for theirs. So we're still in a balancing act on that. So I have to follow up on the date.
Who in the town are they dealing with since Allison's out? Mhm.
That was the sticking point. I mean.
Yeah.
Can you guys-
They do have a timeline.
Right, and she wasn't at the meeting, so we're
Can you
still,
loop in Amy?
oh, yeah, oh, sure. Yes,
Okay. And we have 3 minutes left.
loop in Amy,
Because
okay.
Housing board
Nigel.
starts in 3 minutes.
To add to what Judy said, all these concepts that have the idea of raising the building so that the dune, and in general, moving it back so the dune can rebuild where it ought to be.
Right.
One of the things that I think we need to think about and discuss is siting. And, so the most conservative siting in terms of sort of ease and thinking is to put it more or less where it is, but just sort of move it back. But there are, if you look at Corneck Road and that whole dune region in general, if you were starting from scratch, you would not put it where it is. And I think it's an important question for us to think about where we should be putting the next generation. We shouldn't necessarily be driven by its current position. And I think there's a danger that the current position will drive things unless we talk about it.
So
That doesn't mean we don't end up where it is, but I think it means we need to think about, is that the best idea?
So they haven't done it, the conceptual.
No, well, no, I think I keep pushing them and they have, but the conceptual ideas are all in the parking lot, basically.
Okay.
They've started to think about where you might put it if it wasn't there.
Okay.
And, obviously that is the most vulnerable, narrowest portion of the dune. It's, okay.
So unfortunately, yeah.
I just want to underscore this, something Nora was concerned about at our meeting yesterday, with the intention of having these drawings is so that the public can look at them and have comments
Yes.
about them. It is to stimulate a discussion. There is
correct.
nothing in these drawings that's going to go forward without the
Right.
public's input.
But some of them look really nice. So Anne asked me to put together a quick summary of stuff that I actually had done for sending to GZA after the GZA meeting, because that's of overlap with the blizzard. This document is a very brief summary of the effects of the blizzard. And it's, if you don't have it, it's on the table here. The one thing, and there's some photos here, I think, okay, so we clearly had flooding. There was very obvious erosion, particularly just north of the beach house. Interestingly, the dune erosion really sort of doesn't extend even quite as far as Scotch Beach. So it's really quite localized. And it's almost entirely north of the beach house rather than north and south of the beach house. Huge amount of sand loss from the beaches, so all the cobble is sort of exposed, but it's that will all come back, and the bluffs, the dunes themselves will be restored. I did add on to this the tidal information, which I was able to pull down actually yesterday at the BI Club, and I think it's really interesting to look at, and you can look at it and make your own opinions. One of the things I wanted to draw attention to, so in red is what happened at Newport, and the gray line is the predicted at Newport. Almost always our high tides lag behind in terms of elevation, the ones at Newport. I think for the first time I've ever seen, we had tides that actually exceeded those in Newport during this blizzard. They didn't exceed by much, just a little bit, but they did exceed it. And also for the first time, the GSP actually lagged behind in elevation what was going on at Old Harbour. Old Harbour, the sensor is so noisy in a storm, it's really hard to get a good measure of what's going on. This graph is actually smoothed over 5 readings to try and get these ridiculous sort of motions out. But you can see there that, the overall level of the surge was not huge. The biggest surge occurred during low tide, fortunately. And low tide was huge. It would be like a high tide in many days. So, so that's the bottom line.
Putting that together at
Thank you.
short notice. And I think one thing to think about is like, is there any recommendation we want to make in terms of helping those dunes to grow back in some way? Like, they're already roped off anyway,
I
something.
think we'll be surprised how quickly they do grow back.
Yeah. Okay, so we're a little bit over and there's a housing board meeting about to start, so I would like to make a motion
So
to
move.
adjourn this meeting. Any seconds? Okay, any discussion? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
We
Thank
are
you,
adjourned.
everybody.
It's all warm.